Okay, my dear friends, thank you very much for holding on. I really apologize for the delay, but in your zechus, Hashem should help us understand the Gemara. We're going to start from the Mishnah on the bottom of Yud Amud Beis. Okay, until now we spoke about Yadois Nedarim, Kinoi Nedarim. Now we're going to talk about a process called Hatfasa. Hatfasa is when you activate the holiest neder by saying that the item that you want to prohibit should be like something else that was already asur al neder. So the Mishnah says ha'omer lechulen, someone who says like not chulen, or the Bach has loy chulen sha'ochal. That which I'm eating should not be chulen. That has an implication, but rather it should be kosher. Loy kosher, it should not be kosher. V'loy dachi, it should not be pure. Tahar, or it should not be tahar. The Ran is going to say tahar means loy tahar. V'tameh, or it should be tameh, or noisar, it should be like something that was left over from kachim that became noisar. Now look very carefully. It doesn't say ki noisar. It should be like noisar. You just say noisar. You say that the item that I'm noisar sha'ichalach, it should be noisar. It should be pigol. And all the pigol is the difference between noisar and pigol is noisar is something that was left over beyond the time that is allotted, and pigol is when you have kavanah, when you shecht it, that it should be eaten after the time, even though it's not eaten after that time. It's eaten at the correct time. So, in all these cases, you don't even have to say ki noisar, ki pigol. You could just say noisar u pigol, because since the word itself denotes isser of kodshim, you don't even have to make it, you don't even have to use the comparative word, ki. You don't even have to say ki. Even if you just say this is what it is, it would be asr. However, that's category number one. Category number, not chulin, not kosher, not pure, not tahar, not tameh, noisar, pigol, it's asr. The next categories are where the word itself does not denote intrinsic isser, but you clearly mean that. You clearly mean that. Ki imra. It should be like the sheep of the pen in the mikdash. If you look in the Rush, in these cases, the Rush says, let's say you say tuma, right? Let's say you say it shouldn't be tahar or it shouldn't be dachi. Why does that mean davar hanidar? Because truma is not something that's asr mitam neder, and it could be tameh or it could be tameh. Remember, if you want to use the process of hatfasa, you can only do hatfasa from something which is asr al neder, not something which is asr, not something which is asr like a pig. In other words, let's say you say, I want this loaf of bread to be asr to me like a pig. It doesn't do anything because a pig is not asr as a neder. It's just something you're not to eat. You can only use the process of hatfasa if you say, this thing that I accept upon myself not to eat should be asr like something else which is asr mitam neder, not like something which is asr stam. So why, if you say something should be tameh, is it a valid neder? After all, even truma could be tameh. So the Rush says a very important principle, and that is stam nedarim lahachmir. Since you're trying to make a neder, therefore we say presumably what you mean is something which is asr as kodshim, which became tameh, not like truma. And that's going to be a general principle throughout, even though there'll be ways to interpret it that you're not doing it in a correct procedure, but stam nedarim lahachmir, we interpret it lahachmir. Okay, the Mishnah continues. Ki imra, like the sheep in the pen. of the Tmidim, Kedirim, like the corral of the behemoths of the Karban, Ke'etzim, like the wood of the pyre of the Mizbeach, Ke'ishim, like the fires on the Mizbeach, Ke'mizbeach, like the altar, Kirushalayim, like Yerushalayim. Meaning, what does it mean, Kirushalayim? Like something which is brought as a Karban in Yerushalayim. In all of these cases, oh, thank you. Kahechal, like something that's brought in the hechal of the mikdash. Ke Yerushalayim, or nadar be'echad mikol misham she'am mizbech. If you made a nether with any of the tools of the mizbeach, accessories of the mizbeach. Afal pi shaloi his carbon, even though you did not mention the word carbon, hareza nadar be'carbon. It's a neder. You were menader in something which is also like a carbon. Rabbi Yehuda Ha'omer Yerushalayim, someone who says this should be Yerushalayim, not Ki Yerushalayim, Lo Yamar Klum, has not said anything. See the Ran on Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, second line, Tahar, Tamei, Pigol, Noiser, Asar. Kachi Girsa ben Chais. This is the Girsa in our Chais v'Kash be'enai. It's difficult in my eyes. Ma'ika bein Tahar l'dachi. What's the difference between Tahar and Dachi? Dekivan de Tanach l'dachi b'lamed, since it taught Dachi with a lamed, M'klal de b'loy lamed loy mitzar. Right? You said loy dachi. It should not be pure. That implies if you don't say lamed or not, it's not usher. V'kivan shekain, since this is so, ki amar tahar, if you said tahar b'loy lamed, without a lamed, lama yeh usher. Why should it be usher? V'haloy dachi, but dachi targumai shal tahar. Dachi is the targum of tahar. Matzasi. In other words, so why does the Mishnah say two cases that mean the exact same thing, dachi and tahar? And by dachi it says loy dachi, and by tahar it just says tahar. It doesn't say loy tahar. Umatzasi la Rambam zal perkav mehilchas nedarim shekasav tahar belamed. The Rambam learns that tahar is also belamed. V'tamei pigol noisar beloy lamed. Those where you say the iser is without a lamed, v'chein nirali ikar. By the way, the Ran then goes on to say, if you're goyres in the Mishnah loy tahar, it's good because it says explicitly not tahar. And if we're not goyres it would seem because it says loy dachi already. By dachi, it didn't have to say loy tahar by tahar because that's obviously what it means. The Ran says it taught in the Mishnah 3 dinim. That anytime you say a name that the mashmois is laheter, in other words, the first dinim in the Mishnah, loy chulen, loy kosher, loy dachi, loy tahar, you're saying it shouldn't be kosher, so that implies, but it should be not kosher. And we use the principle meklal lav atashmehein. And anytime you use a lashon that's moira iser, like tamei pigol noisar, then if you say loy pigol loy noisar, then obviously it's not a neder because you're saying it shouldn't be tamei. And in these, like I pointed out, you don't have to say ki, because these, the word itself implies iser. You don't need to say ki. It's only when you're matfisid in something which it's not clear that it's asar, like imra, dirim, eitzim. Their name is not moira, the shem iser, the Ran says. So therefore you would have to say the ke. Look at the end of the Rans on the Mishnah. Ki imra, keseshel carbon, like the sheep of a carbon, the stam nedarim lahachmer. Stam nedarim were machmer. Va'oi demashma de keseh hayadua carbon. It's like the well-known set. Kedirim ke karbanis shabadirim. Like the karbanis in the corral. Ke eitzim, ke shnei gizrei eitzim. Like the 2 wooden woods, like the 2 pyres of wood that they would arrange on the pyre, like the flame of fire, okay, let's see the Gemara. The Gemara is very short tonight. Savruha, we thought, the Ram points out, even though normally Savruha implies a Havamina, and here it's even what we say in the Maskana, but Savruha, originally the Gemara thought, Mai lechulin, what does it mean? Not chulin, or to chulin. It means loy lechulin, it shouldn't be chulin. Lahave, but rather ela carbon, but it should be a carbon. Mani masnisin. Who does the Mishnah go like? Rabbi Meir, if it's Rabbi Meir, the Mishnah can't be Rabbi Meir because less le miklal avatash mehen. Rabbi Meir holds we do not say that we can infer from no, yes. In other words, loy lechulin implies it shouldn't be chulin, but rather it should be asar. But who says we subscribe to that idea that miklal avatash mehin? Rabbi Meir, we know famously the source of Tanai, of stipulation in the Torah, is the Tanai b'nei Gad b'nei Eruvin, where Moshe Rabbeinu said, if you fight ahead of your brethren, then you'll inherit in the Transjordan. And if you don't, you won't. So there, Rabbi Meir holds you need to actually spell out that if you do the right thing, I'll give you what you want, and if you don't, you won't. Because Rabbi Meir holds, if Moshe Rabbeinu would have just said, if you fight ahead of your enemies, you'll get the Transjordan, then the Tanai Rabbi Meir would hold would not be binding, and they would still get the Transjordan because they never spelled out. And if you don't fight ahead of your brethren, you won't get it. Rabbi Yehuda holds we could figure out Meklal Avatash Me'ahin, meaning Rabbi Meir holds you need Tanai Kafel, right? Rabbi Meir holds that when you make a stipulation, you have to say, if you do your end of the bargain, I'll do my end. And you also have to add, and if you don't do your end of the bargain, then I won't do my end. Rabbi Yehuda says you don't have to spell out both. But it can't be Rav Meir, because Rav Meir holds we do not say Miklalav Atashmehin. The Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Rav Meir Oimer, called Tanai She'enu Ketanai B'nei Gad B'nei Eruvin, any stipulation which is not like the stipulation of B'nei Gad B'nei Eruvin, Einoi Tanai, is not a Tanai. Ella Rabbi Yehuda. Rather, the Mishnah must be Rabbi Yehuda. Ema Seifa, but then tell me the Seifa Rabbi Yehuda Oimer. Rabbi Yehuda says, Ha'omer Yerushalayim lo yamar klum. If you say it should be Yerushalayim, you didn't say anything. So then me the Seifa Rabbi Yehuda, from the fact that the Seifa is Rabbi Yehuda, Reisha lav Rabbi Yehuda, the Reisha is not Rabbi Yehuda. So who's the Mishnah? The Mishnah can't be Rabbi Meir, because Rabbi Meir holds we don't say Miklal Lav Atashmehin. The Mishnah can't be Rabbi Yehuda, because the Seifa is Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara, Kula Rabbi Yehuda. Really, the whole Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. V'hachik tani, this is what the Mishnah means. She Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda would say, Ha'omer Yerushalayim lo yamar klum. The whole Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, and not Rabbi Yehuda Omer, She Rabbi Yehuda Omer, because Rabbi Yehuda would say, anyone who says Yerushalayim didn't say anything. Says the Gemara, V'chi Amar ki Yerushalayim lo Rabbi Yehuda mi mitzar. But you're saying that if it's Rabbi Yehuda, does Rabbi Yehuda hold that someone who says Ki Yerushalayim, it's Asr? But we know elsewhere Rabbi Yehuda holds Ki Yerushalayim is not Asr, because what do you mean Ki Yerushalayim? Yerushalayim is not an Isser. V'atani, we learned in a brayso, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ha'omer Ki Yerushalayim lo yamar klum. Anyone who says like Yerushalayim, you didn't say anything. Ad sheyidar bedavar hakarev Yerushalayim, until you are menader in something that's brought as a carbon in Yerushalayim. Ad sheyidar bedavar hakarev Yerushalayim, until you make a neder on something that's brought in Yerushalayim. Says Gemara, no. The whole Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. We have a brayso Rabbi Yehuda says Ke is not good. Kula Rabbi Yehuda, it's all Rabbi Yehuda. Utrei Tanoi alib de Rabbi Yehuda. It's two different Tanoim who argue what Rabbi Yehuda holds, that the Tan of our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, and the Tan of our Mishnah holds that Rabbi Yehuda says that Ki Yerushalayim is good. Let's see the Rans on the Gemara. Savrua. Hai Savrua b'maskana namikai. This Savrua stands in the maskana as well. Udikavase b'reish Bava Basra. We have such an example in the beginning of Bava Basra. Lesle m'klal lav atashmehin. Dehu boy Tanai kafara. Meir holds you need a doubled Tanai. Ukedi Aleph Tanai b'nei Gad b'nei Eruvin. Like we learned out from the Tanai b'nei Gad b'nei Eruvin. Dechsiv im yavru. If you cross over, you'll get what we agree. V'im lo yavru. The Tanan Rabbi Meir Omer bePerek HaOmer beKedushin. So the Ran asks, what do you mean? Rabbi Meir only holds that you need a Tanai Kafel by Mamain, by Isser. He holds you don't need a Tanai Kafel. V'af agav the Amina b'Shvuas ha'edos dechilas slay the Rameir lav hein the dechilas slay the Rameir mikla lav hein. Even though we say in Shvuas ha'edos that when Rameir does not hold of mikla lav atashmehein b'Mamaina, only by Maman b'Isur Islay, he holds you don't need a Tanai Kafel. He holds that by Isser we do say mikla lav atashmehein. Right, you hear the question? The question is, the din that Rameir holds you need a Tanai Kafel doesn't apply by Isser, and Nedarim is Isser, it's not Mamain. Rameir only holds you need a double Tanai by Mamain. The answer is, he holds that you need a double Tanai by Mamain or by Isser that entails Mamain. It's only pure Isser he holds you don't need a Tanai Kafel. He says, V'yafa gav the amrina b'shvus ha'edus chilas Rameir meklavat hein b'mamayna b'Yisrael islay ha'asikna hasam. We conclude over there the b'soita v'edus leslay. By soita and edus he holds we don't say meklavat hashemehin mishum dehava isura de ispe mamayna. It's isur that entails money. Unadarm nami mamayna ispu. Nadarm also entails money. Dahainu chevtza de misarle, the item that becomes asur to him. Ela amar Rabbi Yehuda. But Rabbi Yehuda said, the Amar bePerek HaSholeach, we say in Perek HaSholeach, Gabi moitzi es ishta mishum neder, if you divorce your wife because of neder, to loy boy Tanai Kafel. It's Rabbi Yehuda who holds that if you divorce your wife, you don't need a Tanai Kafel. Ela amrina miklal avat hashemehin. If you divorce your wife because of her Nedarim, then you could retract if it turns out she doesn't have Nedarim. So now the Ran has a very interesting question. What's the problem? Who's the Mishnah like? It's not like Rabbi Meir. It's not like Rabbi Yehuda. So maybe it's like a different Tana. Maybe it's like another Tana who holds Miklalav Atashmehi, namely, V'af agav de Rabbi Chanina Polagalid Rameir B'Tnai Kafel Perka Omer. So maybe it's Rabbi Chanina. We prefer to establish the Mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda, Mishum the Ayriba, because Rabbi Yehuda is in the Mishnah. Even though we have to now be madchik, and rather than establish it like Rabbi Chanina, who's not mentioned at all. Says the Gemara, Mida Seifa Rabbi Yehuda, have a Reisha, Lav Rabbi Yehuda. The fact that the Seifa is Rabbi Yehuda, the Reisha is not Rabbi Yehuda. The Migdatani say Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Meklal Dad Hasha, Lav Rabbi Yehuda B'chud Ketani. That's Mashra. Then until now, it's not Rabbi Yehuda. So Gemara says, Kula Rabbi Yehuda. He says, Aran Rabbi Yehuda Omer. We read it that Rabbi Yehuda said, Ha'omer Yerushalayim lo yamar klum. Why? Kivan shalai hisker kaf hadimyain. Since you didn't say the comparative kaf. V'adin le'imra. The same thing would be if you didn't say ki imra, you just said imra or dirim ve'etzim. Why did it pick Yerushalayim? Ela denakad Yerushalayim mishum desamach le. It picked Yerushalayim because that was the last case mentioned. Avo bepigol noisar v'tamei moidu Yehuda. By the other cases, Yehuda would be moida, like we explained that you don't need the kaf hadimyain. Delay by kaf, like I explained, the kamash pirash mishnah seinu, because the word itself denotes isra misham hachi tanilu tana b'lay kaf. Trey tanoi aliba de Rabbi Yehuda. Tana de Masnis and Savar, the Tana of our Mishnah holds, the Rabbi Yehuda Daitai al Davar Hakarev Yerushalayim, that the Tana of our Mishnah holds that according to Rabbi Yehuda, his das is on something that's brought in Yerushalayim, so therefore if you say Ki Yerushalayim, it is effective. V'chi Amar Ki Yerushalayim, and if you say Ki Yerushalayim, Mitzer, it's Aser. V'tana B'ra Savar, and the Tana the Brisa holds the Daitai al Eitzim Vavanim. His das is on the wood and on the stones, and therefore it's not effective until you say davar hakar b'shlayim. But ad sheyada b'davar hakarev, until you are menader and davar hakarev loy mitzar, it doesn't become asar. Okay, Rabbi Isai, thank you very much for hanging in there. Really appreciate it. Sorry for the late time. Sorry.